Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, it's time!
3 on the way. Oh! NYN! And Indiana wins the ball game! And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni! Throw game for the win! Tyrese! The terror! Don't you open your mouth about that! You talk the truth! The Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kid stealing, woo! Wheeling dealing, limousine life, jet flying, son of a gun! Taylor's gone! Jonathan Taylor! Goodbye, touchdown, Indy!
Not a game. We talking about practice.
I'm never taking a back seat to anybody and don't plan on starting now. Woo! IU! America! They got a football team now! Pretty simple, I win. Google me.
But there's no doubt about it, yeah, you mean Gene Okerlund. You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome into another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Friday, end of the week. Glad to have you with us. Hope everyone has had a tremendous week. And we're ready to end it with a bang. Todd Leary joining us on the program today. Zach Osterman, Matt Taylor from the Colts, and Jeffrey the Greek. We'll get some picks out of the way. That's right. That'll get you pumped. Gotta love that. Hope everyone doing well. I hope you had a great week, like I said. That's Jamie from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Appreciate everybody joining us on the program today. As always, no matter how and where you're listening on one of our great affiliates like 97.7 ESPN, The Ref, always the right call in Southwest Indiana on the river in Evansville down there, up in the region across Chicagoland and Hammond, 12:30 a.m., 104.7 FM, the voice of the region, and Fort Wayne Sports Station, 1380 The Fan. Keep it tuned right here to these stations for more content coming up immediately following Indiana Sports Beat Radio. It has been a tremendous week. Yesterday, I can't stop thinking about having Pat Knight on with me. That was just a blast, and I cannot wait to have him on again. I mean, that's a conversation that could have gone on for hours. Very, very fortunate to have great people like Pat and Chris Denary and all the others that take time out of their days to join us, whether it's Michael Lewis or whomever it is, Sharon Wilkerson, all these former greats, Todd. Very, very fortunate to have them. So great to have that going. And a big announcement came last night, of course, from Kurt Signetti. I think I was probably the first to get that out, that Kurtis Rourke will return tomorrow in East Lansing and be the starter for the Indiana football team as they take on Sparty in East Lansing. Gritty getting that Diet Coke going today. But so that's a big, big boost for the Indiana football team. Is he going to be like he was? It's hard to say. I don't know. But it's a solid boost to the offense. It's a solid boost of confidence. And I think that that should take care of, I don't want to say any worries. You can never act as if you're invincible, because no one is. We've seen that before. But Heath says he thinks it's going to be 42-13. Actually, Heath, you know what? You're 1 point off of my predicted score. I put up 41-13. I just, you don't like to look at other games too much as a comparison, but there is some things to take away. I mean, I'm definitely going to use that Nebraska comparison against Indiana and Ohio State because they came in back-to-back weeks and both were on the road for Nebraska. Nebraska had nothing for Indiana and they had everything for Ohio State in a stadium with twice as many people. So there's that. Speaking of Ohio State, we will be talking about them today as they take on the Nittany Lions in Happy Valley in a big-time game with big-time college football playoff implications because Ohio State can lose that game and still make it and still would make it into the college football playoff if they won out. But if they were to lose this game and Indiana goes into the shoe and upsets Ohio State like I think that they will, Ohio State will be out of the college football playoffs. Now, that's if and if. So don't get all fired up. The Creek Walker back. Been a minute. Glad to have everybody on the Andy Moore Honda hotline as well. You can join us there. Post your comments. Just go to our YouTube channel. Sign up. Subscribe. Hit notifications. And the like button. Cost you nothing. So, how about them apples? You can't get this kind of content anywhere, peeps. We're unique. And let's see, what else? Oh, yeah. I want to get back to the World Series for just a second. Because I remember so specifically watching this play in which when Garrett Cole was on the mound and there was a ball hit to the first baseman. And I was shocked because Garrett Cole didn't cover the play. And in essence, at the end, he's like kind of pointing like, oh, hey, you got that. Go ahead, take it. Well, hell, it's too late. You can't do that, especially the first baseman was deep, number one. Number two, he is expecting you to cover the damn base. That's what you do in Little League. And that, my friends, cost at least the Yankees playing in another game because they had a 5-run lead, 5-0. That play gives up a run and then more. So, yeah, that thing will that's a big boner. That was a bigger boneheaded mistake than the dude ripping the ball out of Mookie Betts' glove, I think. So, you got that going for him, which is nice. Great to have everybody on. Yeah, Jason, that is a definite. Jason says the 80,000 strong crowd could cause IU trouble early. Not a lot of guys on IU have played in front of crowds like that. Definitely not this season. This entire team has not played in front of a crowd like that. And as a matter of fact, you're right, because unless they have played on Indiana's team already, they have not. None of these transfers played in front of a crowd like that ever. They don't play in front of a home crowd like that now with just over 50,000 at IU's Memorial Stadium, and they have been UCLA at the Rose Bowl. I don't remember how many people were there in totality, but that stadium is not one that is the way it is built. It's not as loud as if you put that same amount of people in another stadium. The shoe, or rather Sparty Stadium, is 80,000 strong, and they take their football seriously. They're 4-4. They're 2 games from bowl eligibility. They want to hit that up. Yeah, the Rose Bowl seats 90,000, but it's how it's spread out. It's so wide. It's just the noise evaporates up into those Hollywood Hills. Andrew says if Sparty can't put up 40 against IU, they will not win. I don't know if they would have to put up quite that many, depending on what's going to go on. But yeah, they're going to have to score a lot. And I'm going to take a. Pardon me. Yeah, Sparty is going to have to score a lot of points. They scored like 21 at Michigan, so they could score the ball, but they have not played. And Michigan plays a great defensive front, but Indiana has a better overall defense. So that is that. Let's take a quick pause for the cause as we're coming to you from the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios, high atop Rick House #1. Make sure you visit Hard Truth, especially this weekend. You know what? Great. Go out and watch the Indiana game there in Nashville in Brown County, Indiana. Hard Truth Distilling Company location out there, 325 acres of beautiful rolling woods. There's ATV tours, distillery tours, of course, the incredible Hard Truth spirits like there's Sour Mouse bourbons, Hard Truth, Hard Road Rise, that toasted coconut rum, and the cinnamon vodka. Whoo, you need all that. That's tailgating stuff, man. Tailgating. You know what? That's a good idea. Put together a tailgating package. We need to do that. For those of you, make sure for tailgating, you're getting you some Hard Truth supplies for your tailgating. And take a picture of it, send it to me, and we will put you in a drawing for one of these nice, we've got some ISB jackets, and I'll end up getting some Hard Truth stuff thrown into that deal. But visit Hard Truth over in beautiful Brown County. This is the most beautiful time of year as well. I mean, the leaves have turned, they're falling. There's no better beautiful place to go. Hard Truth and ATVs. Well, you do the ATV tour before you do the Hard Truth Spirits 5 lefts, but good point. Absolutely. We've got lots more coming up here on the program. Todd Leary, the shot father from myjumpshot.com, of course, will join us next when on the other side, brought to you by Hoosier Hanks, where last night Kurt Signetti made that announcement on his radio show that Kurtis Rourke will be starting for the Hoosiers. We'll return with more right after this break.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. We'll return to the Hard Truth Studios for more with Jim Coyle right after these messages.
Okay, let's see. Come on, dude.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday. Happy to have you along as we've got, as always, a full show ahead. Hopefully, the shot father, Todd Leary, will be joining us. Want to talk about tonight's matchup. Not really about the matchup as Marian University comes in to Assembly Hall to take on Indiana. And this is more about Pat Knight coming back. It's just a cool deal coming back as an opposing coach. And that's going to be a cool experience for him, without question. And we've talked about that yesterday. It's on what is one of my favorite segments we've had for a long time. If you did not get a chance to listen to that, you need to. And I don't, say that about a lot of. I don't try to push people to do it, but that was worth listening to, without question. And it was just easy. It was just a great conversation, which I don't do what I call interviews. I consider everything we do here mostly conversations. And what a great conversation that was with Pat. And you get to hear some things. He's honest. He is open. He talked about getting Bob Knight back to Indiana, and how that doesn't happen without him, his involvement, and he wanted that to happen. And it's good to see kind of a reclamation of the program through that, and now to have him back in the state coaching right up the road is pretty cool. Todd's going to join us here a little bit. He's traveling, so we'll get him hooked up here in a minute. And we're going to talk some football too. Todd's a big football fan. And Indiana now heading to East Lansing this weekend, looking to go 9-0, that would set a new program record. They're tied right now. But we'll talk about plenty of that. Zach Osterman's going to join us from the Indy Star. Matt Taylor from the Colts as they try to get back on the winning side of things. With Joe Flacco up in Minnesota, I think this is going to be a one-week thing. I do. I think that they end up putting Anthony Richardson back. Jeffrey the Greek also on the docket for today. So looking forward to that as well. And we're going to get some picks. Go to the college pick'ems. Make sure you get that set up as well. If you haven't gotten your picks in, I'm going to have to pull that up right now. I had like a 500 week last week. That's not good. I've been kind of sitting in the same area of like between 10th and 12th most of the season. I'm at 500 right now. And let's see, let me get that pulled up because I forget who's in the lead, but I want you to make bets for me, dude. Yeah, I am on the entire season. I am 44-44. The shot father, Todd Leary, joining us now. And just so you know right now, Toddrick, I am I cannot hear a damn thing, and I'm working on that. So
Not
I
even
am
me?
going to just go off of reading your lips
Okay.
today, and which is
I'll give you the thumbs
a fun
up
thing to do. And I
I
hope you're doing well. A great weekend ahead. I had Todd, I had Pat Knight on the show yesterday, and it was a really fun conversation just in and of that. Talking about, they're coming back tonight with Marian in an exhibition game, but he's coming back as an opposing coach, no less, which is kind of funny. He talked about the fact that he'd been in the visitors' locker room one time back in the day. He was being recruited by Western, or not Western, I guess it was Minnesota or Western. I don't know where Clem Haskins was, but Clem Haskins was recruiting him, and he said Dad was cool with it. Yeah, because he was cool with it because he knew you weren't going any damn where. He knew what the heck was going to happen. But he said that's the only time he's been in the visitors' locker room. But it's going to be cool. It's cool having him. He's back in Indianapolis. It was just some great stories. I wanted to bring up a story that you had told me about. I forget what the occasion was, but you and Pat had gone over to Bob's home for something on a Sunday. Of course, being with Pat Knight, you were late. You walk in, and Coach Knight said something, and boop, right back out the door you guys went.
Yep, that's a true story. We got booted out for a Sunday dinner, and that was an unusual circumstance. Although we didn't go to Coach's house that often, but I think I went there 3 total times and got kicked out twice. So he was 66% on kicking us out of the house. But Pat coming back is just a fun, cool situation and opportunity for him. And he's got a cool situation at Marian University and taking over there for Coach Hetty, and they do a lot of good things for a lot of kids out of Indianapolis and the surrounding area and the whole state, I guess, for that matter, and getting them a chance to continue their education and play basketball. And so that part of it's fun and exciting and good. And him coming back's going to be weird. Although I don't know, you're not going to be able to laugh and hear this, but I don't know that story is completely accurate, because I know I got dressed for an entire summer in the visitors' locker room because we got kicked out of our locker room one summer because
I'm going to just roll off of that one and on to tonight as Indiana welcomes in Marian. That's more of it's a tune-up for Indiana, of course. And Pat talked about it. This is great exposure for his guys. It's a great opportunity for his guys. They're going to play in front of more people than they're going to see all season. That's a great environment as he works on building up the Knights program. And how appropriate is it that they're the Knights? That's just funny. If they would just now call it the Bob Knights, that would be even funnier. But and he's got his guy Steve Downing there. They could probably make that happen. Last week, I want to talk about their game against Tennessee because we didn't get to do that since they've played. That's a hell of a win. You're going to Knoxville to take on a team that some people have as the 10th ranked team. Some people have the 12th ranked team. But Indiana goes on the road and gets a road win in a game they didn't play all that great in either. So that has to be a huge boost for confidence and then thinking about what this team can be.
Yeah, it really is. And they didn't shoot the ball very well, Indiana, and that is, that's, I think, probably going to be an underlying concern for the whole season. We're hoping, although I do think they're going to be much better shooting than they were last year. Luke Goody is a huge addition I think he's easily he and Mbako are going to lead this team in shooting the ball. I think percentage-wise, Goody will probably lead the team in three-point percentage. But he's just a huge addition. He's a big deal. And going into that environment and coming out, the way that they did, I don't think Tennessee is very good. That ranking is a little weird. Like their whole team last year was Dalton Connect, and they don't obviously have him anymore. So they're going to struggle to score. This is going to be more like a Tennessee team we're used to, in that they're going to try to win games 50-40 instead of outscoring you. So, but at the end of the day, it's a good win. It's a good situation for you to go in there. If they go in there and lose by 20, you realize you got a lot to work on, and they do have a lot to work on. But boy, they got a lot of good pieces to work with, and I think Coach Woodson's probably going to be pretty excited about where they're at.
And obviously the shooting didn't start out great, which again has been the bugaboo for this team. I think 0 for 8 to start out shooting threes. Yeah. And actually overall, they didn't shoot the ball very well. Neither team did. I don't know if that's early season for both. Some defense. Tennessee was terrible from field goals, from a field goal percentage. Umar Ballo, great job pulling down 11 rebounds, but only 6 points. I was a little surprised he didn't score more because he played over 30 stinking minutes. I don't know if he was just had too much Anthony Richardson. He was too tired. Maybe he was too tired to score.
Yep, and there was a bunch of good things that came out of it. There's some things obviously that I know that they need to work on, and this Indiana team is going to be different than last year's team. They're not going to pound it inside quite as much as what they did last year. I think they're going to do that when they play the half court, but they're also going to try to push the ball a little bit more and get up and down and do some things in that regard, which I was surprised at the minutes Ballo played. But with injuries and some guys who didn't play, I think there was guys that played a few more minutes than what they normally will during the regular season. But yeah, it was that's a good environment to go into and come away not shell shocked and feeling pretty good about where you're at this part of the season.
Will you make it out to tonight's game?
I will not. No.
Yeah, I know it's tough for all those sometimes to get to those, but like I said, this is an exhibition game, the last exhibition game, and then Indiana has a couple of more what I call early season tune-ups, even though they are actual regular season games. But when they head off to, and we'll have time to talk about this, but when they head off to the Bahamas for the Battle of Atlantis down there, they start right off with a Louisville team, Todd, that has 13 new players. And in what I've seen from their exhibitions, they're scoring some damn points.
Yeah, they've got a coach that likes to get up and down the floor and score points. And this is, don't compare Louisville this year to what they've been the last several years. And I'm not saying they're going to be world beaters because it's probably going to take some adjustment time, but they're not going to be the same Louisville team that's been beat up on for the last couple of years. They've got some better players, and they've got a great coach that's really knows what he wants to accomplish and gets these guys up and down the floor. And he's got a fun style of basketball that he's not going to have any problem recruiting guys to come in there and play.
And it's going to be interesting. And not only that, that's going to be Indiana's biggest and probably only true preseason. I keep calling it preseason, pre-conference, non-conference challenge. But because if they get by Louisville, and even if they don't, they're going to have somebody else. But if they do happen to get by Louisville, Gonzaga is waiting in the wings, and then a multitude of others. So they're going to get a bigger early season test than they have had for a couple of years, even though they have played a couple of teams. They played UConn and then they played Auburn, but those were separate. And this is coming at you. Boom, boom, boom. It's not only is it more like the NCAA tournament, but even more so because in the NCAA tournament, you're only going to play 2 games in a weekend. This is at least 3, I think.
Yeah. These preseason tournaments are fun, and they're probably more fun for the fans than the coaches. I don't think they love playing that many games back to back to back, but it's a cool fun. This is such a fun time of year outside of March and March Madness and all that. This is my favorite time of year because when it comes to basketball and football, because you got all these good games going on right now, football wise, and then you get to throw in right around Thanksgiving all these big tournaments with great schools playing against each other. So yeah, that's super excited to see that. And you're right, Indiana's going to find out really quickly where they're at going into this season.
And we've heard a lot of talk again about the style of play that Mike Woodson would like to see, and that fans should expect to see, and that the word has been tempo. But we've heard that before, and in that first game against Tennessee, which it's just one game, I get it, and the shooting wasn't falling, maybe that affected it as well, but not a lot of tempo in that game.
Yeah, no, there wasn't. But a lot of that has to do with Tennessee. That's how Tennessee wants to play. They're not a good scoring team. They like to beat you on the defensive end of the court. So, look, for the team that they played, they actually did get up and down the floor pretty well and play pretty quickly. And so, yeah, it's they're going to play at a faster pace, even with Ballo playing the minutes that he plays. They're going to play a little quicker. I think they're going to shoot a little quicker in the offenses. What I have heard, at least in the early part of the season. So we'll see where they end up with that. But I wouldn't read too much into the Tennessee pace, because that's what Tennessee wants to do to you.
And then I want to ask you about Miles Rice. He may end up being the single most important piece that was added to this team. He immediately showed his importance in that game at Tennessee, with becoming the point guard that Indiana has not had in a while. Not only is he playing the point guard position extraordinarily well, hell, he was scoring the ball. He was, I think he led him in scoring with 21. I don't have the stats pulled up, but I think he had 21 points in that game. So if you're going to get that kind of production out of him, if you can just start getting the shots to fall and some other guys, that bodes very well for that team.
Yeah, it really does. And he was, he is exactly what I think we all wanted him to be. And I think the coaches wanted him to be. He played really well, and he ran the floor. He ran the offense and got guys where they needed to be. You could tell he was the general on the floor, and that was, that's something Indiana just hasn't had. Even though I think Gabe Cupps does an admirable job running the point, he's definitely not the creator that Rice is, and I think it's just that he's only going to get better and better as he gets more comfortable with the offense and more comfortable with the guys around him. He's only going to get better, as are the rest of the guys that are around him.
All right. Some football coming up, man. Big weekend, of course, for Indiana. They get Kurtis Rourke back. That was announced last night by Curt Cignetti on his radio show with Don Fisher. I love Curt Cignetti's complete, total honesty. He does not BS anybody. I mean, they could have held on to that information right up until they didn't have to. And
that's what we're very used to.
Again, nothing against Tom Allen, but man, he tried to use that every game, it seemed like. And I'm like, man, you're all not good enough for people to worry about who your damn quarterback is. You don't have a great one. So, but this is a completely different situation, because last week it was very evident to the eye, and statistics bore it out. Indiana is averaging around 46-7 points a game, one of the highest in the country. But last week, the offense only put 24 points on the scoreboard, and definite drop-off in the production in that first half. So very positive sign for Indiana getting Kurtis Rourke back. Nothing against Taven Jackson, led him to a win. But, boy, Kurtis Rourke's one of the top quarterbacks in the country.
Yeah, and this team, when you've got your quarterback in that situation, you've played that many reps with them, of course they're going to be more comfortable and I think play better and a little smoother with the starting quarterback in there. And Taven Jackson did an outstanding job. He was great. Most teams lose that game when you don't have your starting quarterback and you play that game last week. This is a big one this week. It would be, going on the road in the Big Ten, it's always tough. But this would be a gigantic win for them to get and be able to come back home and play, I think, Michigan next week and be undefeated at that point. I mean, the there's so much attention surrounding them right now, but it's only going to get bigger if they can come back here undefeated against Michigan.
Well, brother, I hope your weekend goes well. As always, we appreciate you each and every Friday. Make sure you're going to myjumpshot.com. I failed to get that up there today, but don't forget to go to myjumpshot.com for any of you that know a kid, have a kid, are a kid. You don't even have to be a kid, though. It doesn't matter. College down through however low you want to go, where you want to start them. Todd Leary, the shot father, still one of the highest ranking three-point shooters in Indiana's history. Quickly before we go, because I know you were probably not far off from this, one of the stories that Pat Knight told us yesterday is he was talking about him and Damon Bailey when they first got going in school, that they were loving life. No classes. They had girls getting notes for them, copying all the school notes down from what the profs had to say, had people going to get them food. They're sleeping till noon, just digging it. And Tim Knight stopped by one day and just checking on Pat, and he asked him how it's going. He goes, "Oh, it's great." And he told him all these, man, we got this and that. He goes, "You idiot." He goes, "Don't you know Dad sends a letter to every single professor every 2 weeks asking about what you're doing in there?" And they're like, "Oh, crap." And then the very next day they get a call from, I guess it was Marian. Marian. He said, "There's two things you did not want to get: a message from Marianne, because that meant you had a meeting with coach, or to see Buzz Kurpius walk out onto the floor during practice."
Still have nightmares of either one of those two scenarios. Yeah, that was those two things happening meant it was not going to be a good day for you. So yeah, it was. Coach Knight kept tight reins, and here was the deal: like, he trusted us. If you got good grades and didn't get teachers telling on you for not coming to class, then they didn't really bother you a whole lot. But as soon as you got in trouble or did anything negative, you were on the radar, and you did not want to be on the radar.
The shot father, Todd Leary, joining us here on this Friday, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thanks, brother. Be safe. Have a great weekend.
Appreciate you. Thanks.
We'll see you again next time. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. The segment brought to you by Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty. For those of you looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, reach out to Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Her 2 decades of experience could be the difference in getting the home you want or not. Also, don't forget, visit Hard Truth's Distilling Company this week. Great time to go out there. Watch the Indiana game on Saturday. It's a 3:30 kickoff. Perfect. Go out there, enjoy the day. You can take the family or just go out with the friends, hang out. It's going to be an incredible spot. We've got lots more coming up on the program. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, Matt Taylor from the Colts will join us later as they try to get back onto the winning side, and Jeffrey the Greek, as we're going to lay out some picks this weekend. Ohio State at Penn State. Big time game. More coming up right after this break.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Homes Pro Teams by Cheryl Sizemore. We'll return to the Hard Truth Studios for more with Jim Coyle right after these messages.
Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their Cinnamon Vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum, Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So, no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. This segment is brought to you by Free Think Apparel.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. So glad to have you with us, as always. Hope you're ready for a big weekend. We've got the game tonight as Indiana is hosting Marian University. Pat Knight coming into Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Very a cool situation in that. Then tomorrow, Indiana football heading up to East Lansing. And taking on Sparty to see if they can manage a road game in front of 80,000 people, which I believe that they can handle that without an issue. We sure certainly find out. But the fact that they have Kurtis Rourke back, that's big time. Don't forget the college pick'ems. I'm going to jump over to that real quick. I mentioned that earlier. I'm right at the Mendoza line, man. Just 44 and 44. So, but there are, and in this week's picks, the last 2 weeks in a row, they've included Indiana in the picks. That's the first for me that I've seen. But let me get to the group. Come on, man, pull up the group, because the group leader, J-Bow, James B, you're killing it, man. This is against the spread, people. 58 and 32. That'll make you some money. So congratulations. Jim F is Green Bay 1955s, not too far behind, 52 and 38. Then Ethan's always up there. Ethan P. David, Derek, Tyler, Herbal, David M, Buffalo Bill, Caleb, Brian, oh man, Clay, Jeff, and then me. Yeah, 44 and 44, boy. That does nothing for you. That's milk toast, lukewarm. This week's offerings, though. First of all, it starts off with Ohio State and Penn State. Penn State is getting 3.5 points at home. And I don't know what I think about that game. We'll be talking about it more, of course, as we go throughout the day when Zach joins us. But after last week's outing against Nebraska at home, you're like, oh, okay. And Ohio State's kind of hurting on the offensive line, I believe. Penn State's defense has been top-notch all season. Their offense sluggish, and Drew Alar is they don't know if he's going to play or not, although their backup, Pribula, played pretty well last week. So they've got that going for them, which is nice. Duke at Miami, one of the other picks. I took Miami, although it's a 20.5 point spread. Ole Miss, the Rebels travel to Arkansas. I took Ole Miss. Army hosting at Air Force, 23.5. Army's they're 7-0. They're the other team, along with Indiana, that has not trailed for a second this entire college football season. Although I think that Navy, was highly thought of as well before last week's thrashing by Notre Dame. We'll see how that end of the year turns out. Iowa State hosts Texas Tech in one of our pick'em games. Oregon at Michigan. Interesting game. Oregon goes into the big house. It did not, hell, it wasn't that big of a problem for Michigan State last week, as Sparty, was within a score of that game. So I don't think it's going to slow Oregon down much. Oh, mercy. I think it may have been muted there. Let's hope not. Hope everybody can hear me now. Can you hear me now? Georgia is at home to Florida. Florida has not been that good this year, and their coach is on the hot seat. Indiana gives up 7.5 at Michigan State. I do not see that as a problem at all for Indiana, especially now that Kurtis Rourke's back. Although I do think this game might be closer than a lot of people think. It's Kurtis Rourke's coming back in this game. It's the environment itself is going to be pretty crazy with 80,000 people in those stands and a 4-4 team that is still looking for bowl eligibility. But Indiana's offense is just too complete. That's the thing. It's not just a passing team. They're a great running team, a great throwing team, a great team. Then you've got to worry about their defense, which is a top 7 nationally ranked team and one of the best against the run. They lead the Big Ten in sacks, in tackles for loss, and another category that's slipping my mind right now, but they are tenacious. Tenacious D is Indiana. Do they have the best defense in the Big Ten? Maybe. Statistically, it sure says that. We'll find out. They're going up against I don't know. This is definitely their toughest test of the season because of the environment. I don't know that Michigan State's much better than Washington, but when you add the environment, that changes things. Absolutely. Clemson is hosting Louisville. Louisville has just been really, I don't want to say they've faded some, and going down to Clemson I don't think that they've ever beaten Clemson. And I do not see this as the Louisville team to get that job done. I don't know if they can stay within 11.5 points. We shall see. But the 2 Big Ten games that matter are Oregon at Michigan and Ohio State at Penn State. The Ohio State at Penn State is a big one because for obvious reasons. If Penn State loses, they become another Big Ten team that is probably going to end. They would become another Big Ten team that will end the season 11-1. And Indiana is going to be that at worst, but I think that Indiana can go into, I've said this a couple times now this week, Indiana can go into Ohio State and win. I don't doubt that. I think that Indiana is a more complete team. Now, that doesn't give them an automatic win because of the environment, because of having to perform, because Ohio State does have some very, very talented players. But it's going to be interesting to see what Indiana's defense can do. I'm not worried about Indiana's offense. They just have too many weapons. I'm not saying that they're that superior to Ohio State, but they are as good or better than the Buckeyes in Columbus offensively. Defensively, that is going to be what wins that game. That's why there's so much confidence when you go on a road game to Michigan State, at least why I have confidence in that team to come back with a win. Defense travels. You need the offense, obviously, and Indiana happens to have the most prolific offense in the country, along with Miami. And you're getting your guy back. They use their running game and pretty much primarily in the entire second half of the game last week with purpose. You know why? Because they could. And they did. And they soaked that game away without putting themselves in any precarious situations, without putting the quarterback in any precarious situations. Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't remember what that was. So I don't remember what that opening was. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star is going to join us next here on the program. And looking forward to getting his thoughts on all things that are coming, because there's a lot to do that. And we'll do that and more when we return to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Don't forget, visit Hard Truth this weekend. Great time to go out there as Indiana playing a road game at Michigan State. For those, many of you that are not going, go out to the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Nashville and Brown County. Enjoy the beautiful, beautiful Southern Indiana scenery. Full-service restaurant, ATV tours, distillery tours, great merchandise, and, of course, the wonderful Hard Truth Distilling Company spirits. We'll take a pause for the cause, and on the other side, Zach Osterman from the Indy Star will join us as we look forward to talking to Zach each and every week. And also, be a subscriber. Keep local papers alive. Make sure you're giving Zach a follow. And subscribe to our YouTube page, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Hit the notifications toggle. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this break.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. We'll return to the Hard Truth Studios for more with Jim Coyle right after these messages.
Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for Zach, I'm trying to find some awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth
You what?
Mash Bourbon, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Rye, as well as their cinnamon.
I can't hear you over the promo. I'm sorry.
Roasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So, no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Hey, Zach. I can't hear a damn thing, just so you know. So I'm gonna just go off of reading your lips, man.
Okay.
This is no fun.
Just ask some open-ended questions.
That changed, and here we go.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. A big sports weekend coming ahead for Indiana, for the Colts, for a lot of people at Big Ten. A lot of Big Ten games going on, Zach. Basketball tonight as Indiana with their final tune-up exhibition game, but more importantly, it's more of a homecoming for Pat Knight, the newly minted head coach for the Marian Knights. And I had him on the show yesterday. It was awesome. He is loving it. He's glad to be back. He is enjoying the fact that he's going to get to come to Bloomington to Assembly Hall, actually going to be in the opponent's locker room for just the second time, he told me. And first time being when he was being recruited by Clem Haskins. And so he got to go over there for a recruiting visit once. But it's just it continues to be a bringing back together of the Indiana basketball family, which was fractured for so long.
Yeah, and obviously I think people will remember too, Steve Downing is the athletic director at Marian, and that his ties. I think Mike Woodson was talking either last year or the year before about how when he was a young, he'd go over to Steve Downing's house, and Steve Downing's wife, I think Mike Woodson's words were, make a big old pot of chili. And they, that I think those relationships have endured strongly to this day. And so I think it's just kind of a deepening of, in many ways that program, Marian, not Indiana, but that program's ties to IU basketball and to the things that it means to any number of people. So I'm sure it'll be a special moment for Pat coming back, and I suspect it'll be a special moment for Mike Woodson because obviously his relationship with the Knight family remains strong, for many, many, many years.
And then of course that's all good and fun for some basketball fans in Indiana. We'll get into their regular season coming up, which a few more I'll call tune-up games, although they are real games. But then they get into a stiff test, which we'll get to talk about that because that's the ways to come. But they're going to get a quick test early when they head to the Bahamas.
I mean, that's going to be not just a quick test, but I mean, it's going to be the most important, frankly, sequence on their non-conference schedule. There's really not. I mean, unless South Carolina surprises a lot of people, Indiana's not going to face anything, like really quality-wise at all in the non-conference outside of Atlantis. And that was one reason why, maybe not from an NCAA tournament perspective, but simply from a learned perspective, the perspective of how you test yourself and get better. That's what I think made the Tennessee exhibition so important. But from a tournament perspective, from a resume perspective, the trip to Atlantis, the trip to the Bahamas is hugely important for this team to add some quality to its NCAA tournament resume with some non-conference neutral site wins on those 3 days in late November, because if Indiana doesn't do it there, it's not likely to do it anywhere. And then you are really in a position where Indiana is going to have to sort of make hay while the sun shines on the back of its Big Ten schedule, which isn't impossible, obviously. But you're not going to want to go into the Big Ten with absolutely nothing in hand from a non-conference perspective for your NCAA tournament resume. You are going to want and, borderline need to be able to lean on something before you get to Big Ten play that begins to build out that resume so that when you do get to Selection Sunday, you're not just asking them to look at a bunch of empty calorie non-conference games and what you did in the conference.
And then, of course, basketball or football this weekend. Big news coming last night on Inside Indiana Football, Kurt Signetti's radio show, as he made the announcement that, very casually, I might add, that Kurtis Rourke will start tomorrow and play the game, which is great news for Indiana football fans, but also great news as they continue to fight the brand bias. We have not seen how that will actually affect the college football playoff poll, as that poll, first one, comes out following this game, a couple of days following this game. So we're going to get a better idea. There's definitely been brand bias in the AP poll, but we will see how much that is carried over. I was on the teleconference this week with the executive director for the college football playoffs, and I asked him that very question. How are fans going to be assured that it's not about what's on your jersey? It's about, the teams like Indiana, how they not going to be looked over, and they give you the we're looking for the best teams routine and all that. But at the end of the day, we know that that's not, that it's not that it's not true. It is also true that there is brand bias, and but it's going to be awfully difficult to keep an 11-1 Indiana team out, but it's not going to be impossible. But the easy way to do that is just take care of business and keep winning. The next opportunity comes, and they're probably their toughest test because they're going to be playing in front of 80,000 people this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, with Rourke, I think it's hugely important that Kurtis Rourke is back, and I think that kind of goes without saying. But I think it's funny. You kind of go back and look now at the Big Ten statistics, and despite the fact that he has played one game less than all of his competitors in the everybody else in the top five, he's still in the top five in the conference in passing yards. He's still second in completion percentage. He leads the conference in yards per attempt. He's tied for fourth in the conference in touchdowns. And again, he's tied the only player who's also played 7 games and has more touchdown passes than him is Will Howard at Ohio State. Rourke's 3 interceptions are, let's say, tied for least among qualified passers. Nobody with at least 150 pass attempts has thrown that few interceptions. Rourke's quarterback rating is still the highest in the conference. And one of the things that I bring up a lot is he's doing a lot of what he's doing on 25.9 attempts per game. That is 11th. That is tied with Will Howard for 11th in the conference. So when you see Billy Edwards with more passing yards, or Miller Moss, or even Dylan Gabriel, who I think is having an outstanding season, you have to remember that, like, Moss, for example, is throwing the ball 13 times more a game than Rourke is, and Rourke is still putting up comparable sort of per game averages and per game numbers. It is a remarkable season that he's having, and he is, the strength of this Indiana team is its depth, its balance. But if there is one player who is kind of the linchpin, the one Indiana can least afford to lose, it's Kurtis Rourke. To your point about the college football playoff, I generally, I've gotten some of that with people too. And, I sometimes, I don't know if it's brand bias. It is hard to get up the AP poll. As someone who used to vote in the college basketball poll, it is hard to get up the AP poll late into the season, simply because you get to a point where stuff has started to calcify. Teams that were ranked in the preseason have moved their way up and started to entrench themselves, and teams just don't lose that often in the top 10, top 12, especially in this world we live in now, where the biggest conferences, not everybody plays each other. So Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana, 3 of the recognized 4 best teams in the Big Ten this season, will not play each other unless 2 of them meet in Indianapolis. What I have told people when they brought up the brand bias thing is basically wait for the college football playoff rankings and see where Indiana is then, and get a sense for the committee's decision-making process. Because let's be fair, Indiana has we put together something today about basically could Indiana make the Big Ten championship game with a loss, and the answer is it's pretty difficult. The trouble that Indiana is going to get into, just to use this as an example, so if we wind up in a situation where there are 3- and 4-way ties, we'll work down through some tiebreakers, and you can get to one, which is opponent's conference record. At the moment, if you keep Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana all in the same bucket, and obviously they played different numbers of games, or maybe they haven't, I'm not sure. I think they have. Ohio State's opponents are 26 and 18. Oregon's are 18 and 25. Penn State's are 18 and 26. Indiana's are 15 and 28. So, and that's common opponents, so basically teams in the conference. But it is a way of illustrating Indiana has played a softer schedule, and there's no arguing against that. The question on the backside is, how does the committee feel about a team that maybe has played a softer schedule, but has really steamrolled some of the teams that it's played? Indiana is winning its games by an average of 32.4 points per game. Even if you remove the Western Illinois game, you set that to one side, you say that was an FCS opponent, etc. The other 7 games, Indiana's still winning by an average of more than 26 points. And that's where I think, when I say wait for the committee, I suspect if Indiana wins this weekend, Indiana will be higher up the committee's rankings than it is in the polls. I also think that when you do talk about brand bias, I think it can work both ways. I do think that Indiana can win more respect by winning these next 2 games, because it is Michigan State on the road and it is Michigan at home. Whatever their current state, the brand of those programs, I think, could change some perceptions a little bit. But in general, what I'm trying to say is I do think there's a decent chance we get to the first committee rankings, and if Indiana wins at Michigan State, it's in a better position than what it's perceived to be in the polls right now. And I think that's why Indiana fans, like when I talk to them, I just say, just relax and it'll be fine.
And of course, it's going to be interesting to see if there's been any drop off with Kurtis Rourke's play. He's been out for, I guess, a week and a half is what you'd call it. But how does he step right back in there? Of course, he's fortunate because this offense is running, hitting on all cylinders in every other way. The running game has not missed a beat. As a matter of fact, they relied on the running game in the second half of last week's win to kind of seal that game away and kind of flex their muscles a little bit with that. So it'll be interesting to see if he can just step right back into being Kurtis Rourke, or is it kind of an ease-in situation?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Michigan State has not been great shakes defending the run this season. So, and, I know that it didn't quite work out 1-to-1 with, how Nebraska or how Washington had struggled against the run, and Indiana didn't just, walk out there and start tearing off big strips. But eventually, obviously, Indiana did get to a place where I think it got 188 and, some important scores on the ground. Michigan State, if you look at it, they allowed 5.3 yards per carry and 185 yards to Ohio State. They allowed 5.76 yards per carry and 213 yards to Oregon. They only allowed 133 yards to Iowa, but they still allowed almost 5.8 yards per carry. All 3 of those teams rushed for multiple touchdowns against Michigan State. It's worth saying the Spartans were a lot better against the run against Michigan. Now, you can sort of choose your own adventure on that. Michigan is a pretty good run team, has been for a while. On the one hand, you can give Michigan State some credit. Michigan is averaging 172.6 a game. They've been one of the better rushing teams in the conference. You can give the Spartans some credit for slowing that down. On the other hand, that could also be a function of, Michigan getting to a place where you can just load the box and force them to pass because you just don't have to respect it at all. And Michigan winds up winning that game, and so maybe that game plan doesn't quite work. But Michigan State was a lot better in that game. 3.8 yards per carry, 3.8 and change, only the 1 touchdown. 31 carries for 119 yards. Really did not let Michigan establish the run game against them. What I would say is, statistically speaking, when Michigan State has faced opponents at the level that Indiana is operating at right now, it has struggled to stop the run, and it has struggled to kind of keep teams off schedule against the run. And that has been, I think, a big part of the reason why Michigan State is one of the worst teams, not just in the conference, but in the country, trying to get off the field on third downs. Michigan State is 116th nationally, allowing a conversion rate of 44.86% on opponent third down attempts. And I bring both those numbers up to illustrate that, to your point about Kurtis Rourke, if you don't want to give him too much, if you don't want to push him in too quickly or too early, you may have the option to run the ball, set yourself up in some favorable down and distance situations, and kind of go from there. Now, we saw Indiana not afraid to pass the ball with Taven Jackson last week. I think there was a message there that just sort of said this offense passes the ball. That's what we do. That's how we move the ball. That's how we're structured. But I do think that Indiana might have some openings to take a little bit of the workload off Kurtis Rourke if it needs to, frankly. I mean, if it doesn't, then, then we don't, then this is an academic conversation. But if for any reason it needs to, then it has that opportunity.
Well, brother, we appreciate you, and I'm sure we'll see you tonight or this weekend sometime. And make sure you're giving Zach a follow and be a subscriber. Keep local papers alive. Appreciate you as always, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jim.
Zach Osterman, the Indiana IU insider for the Indy Star, joining us. Up next, the Colts voice, Matt Taylor, and Jeffrey the Greek will join us as we'll see if the Colts can get back on track. And then got lots of games coming up this weekend. More Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming up from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios right after this break.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. We'll return to the Hard Truth Studios for more with Jim Coyle right after these messages.
Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Rye, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So, no matter where you shop,
Matthew and Jeffrey, how are you guys?
Want the truth, the hard truth.
Good.
Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you
Matt,
to
I don't know
enjoy
if Matt's
all of
there.
their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
I have done this entire show without being able to hear a damn thing.
Ooh, that's tough.
I didn't think quick enough to use my phone. Here, say something for me. Never mind.
Indiana Hoosiers, best team in the land.
What the hell? This is stupid. I'm not even worried about this crap anymore. Gee whiz.
Dang it, Jim.
How's your week going, brother?
Pretty good. Hit an under last night, so off and running, baby.
Matt, how are you doing, brother?
Hi. I can't talk about betting.
Oh, no. Wouldn't consider that.
Rules are rules.
Can't talk about betting.
Wouldn't think about that.
But if I did, I would take the Hoosiers plus the points.
Oh, especially now.
Covering.
No, I'm just teasing. I don't know shit.
Hey, none of us do. I picked a 14-leg parlay yesterday for $25, and if it hits, it pays like $7,000.
There you go. Those are good numbers.
I'm like, that's $25. If it hits, great.
Good luck.
Yeah. It's going to take more than luck, I think, to do 14. That.
Oh, man.
Man, I am screwed up today. Yeah, I might have should have done that. Y'all hang tight, and I'm going to jump back in. Oh, I better not. All right, you guys ready to roll?
Boys.
Ready.
All right, let's see.
Can I get that logo?
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios. This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33.
What the shit?
And Pave Drain. Don't forget, Pave Drain. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. Our good friend Jeffrey the Greek joins us, and Matt Taylor from the Colts. Matt, the Colts looking to get back on the winning ways up in Minneapolis this weekend as they travel to take on the Vikings. And I know that they're going to be with Joe Flacco at the helm for now. I expect that's going to change, and I know that there's probably not a lot that you can talk about there, but it's definitely a unique situation. It's it's a whole lot of things. But first of all, and I don't even know what you can and can't say, but I'll say what I will say is it's a learning experience, and I think that he needed to be benched at the least because he's got to get respect back from a lot of people. And that's going to be a tough road to hoe, but you can do that. The only way you're going to be able to do that is on the playing field. But this week, Joe Flacco's the guy, and he's played unbelievably well, man.
Yeah.
He had Old Man Rivers before. I wish we had a great nickname for Joe Flacco, but can't come up with one right now.
Well, there's a lot of different ways to look at this move, and I tend to look at it from a player's perspective because, I think you look at it from the standpoint of the locker room. You've got guys that are in their primes like Jonathan Taylor and Quentin Nelson and Ryan Kelly and DeForest Buckner and Zaire Franklin and on and on and on you go. I think you owe it to those guys to try to win and capitalize on this window of opportunity here now. Those guys are busting their tail every single day trying to win, and they're paid to win now. No one is here to worry about the future because tomorrow's not guaranteed in this league, as we all know. And if they weren't producing, if those guys weren't producing, they would be replaced at their positions as well. So, like I've always said, this team has too much talent on it to not compete for a division title and at the very least a playoff berth. And it's all about winning, man. This is a bottom line business. Again, this is the NFL, man. It stands for not for long. And Shane Steichen he's not solely here just to develop quarterbacks. He's paid to win and to win now, just like every other coach in the NFL. So it's really disappointing that the season has come to this because the season was about two things. It was about winning and getting back to the playoffs and developing Anthony Richardson simultaneously. Well, now you've reached the point where his development is taking too long and you're not winning with him because of his inconsistencies. So now you turn to a quarterback that's a proven winner. He's been in this league for a long time, and at the very least in the short term, he can get you where you want to go better than Anthony Richardson can based on what he has shown to this point in the season. But in saying all that, Jim, there's no doubt that Anthony Richardson's development and his growth, it's being stunted. There's no way around that. And when you don't play, you the only thing you get good by watching is watching. And the Colts are definitely taking a different approach to this, and they're taking a different mindset on how they've handled Anthony Richardson since he was drafted 18 months ago. But as Shane Steichen said this week, you worry about the future in the future. You're paid to win games now, and you go in the direction that you feel best gives you the chance to do that. But there's no question this move right now is going to be in the background of everything. And I mean everything the Colts do the rest of this season and certainly in the offseason because Joe Flacco's here on a one-year deal.
Yeah, and it's not just that; it's the value of the draft pick that they took him at, the money which while the money should always be a factor, it's really not at this level because there's so much money that goes elsewhere. And I know that Jeffrey, you follow more college football, but on Sundays you've got nothing else to do, man. What are your thoughts on the Colts situation?
First thing I'd like to say, some of the greatest uniforms in NFL history, Colts home uniforms, away white uniforms as well. Chef's kiss to those uniforms. Always,
I love traditional.
The horseshoe on the helmet. I mean, it just doesn't get much better than that.
How do you not think every time of, and I know he was not in Indianapolis, but you've got Peyton Manning who was, but also, man, the man, Johnny U got him. There's a statue of him down south at Louisville. The old black shoes. I mean, he couldn't. Matt can tell you. What was he drafted like in the 1,000th round or something?
I had to go back and look that up. Yeah.
Matt didn't know going to get a historic question at Friday on Friday morning on the radio show.
I can tell you anything you want to know about Joe Flacco.
Seriously, but I mean, he was like he was not he did not have this great college career. He was not one of these guys coming out that like, oh God, you got to have him. Oh man, he's a franchise maker. As a matter of fact,
drafted 102 overall in 1955 in round 9. Yeah, drafted 102 overall in round 9 in 1955.
There you go.
There you go. How about that?
Yeah. I would actually, if I could, respectfully challenge Matt a little bit. If I do think there are times when a young quarterback, if he feels like too much is on his plate and gets overwhelmed, maybe he sees a senior guy prepare. Maybe he sees a few instances on how a senior guy handles pressure and what's coming at him. And if he does sit back, I still think, even though it's the NFL, I do think there's human nature to, you have to go through something first, take a step back. You might be paying a little bit more attention. You might be able to see it from a little bit different set of eyeballs. Now you see Flacco, do, and it's not going to be necessarily better, but different and a different take on it. I think it can sometimes help these quarterbacks. You see guys that wind up being backups for a couple years after starting, they come back in, they look better. No better example of that than who the Vikings are, or the Vikings are rolling out at quarterback with Sam Darnold. He was horrible. I think the best thing for him was sitting for a while, taking some of the pressure off him. He looks a lot better now. I do think a really pretty good receiving core helps him out as well. Formerly a really good offensive line, but they've took a big hit with Darisaw being out. So I don't know. That's just the one thing I guess I would throw out there looking at quarterbacks.
No, I would agree with you in that this is all about how Anthony Richardson handles this situation. This is a huge fork in the road for him in his career. And quite frankly, it's a huge fork in the road. Another fork in the road for the Colts, since they've been on the search for franchise quarterback stability since August 24th of 2019, right? The night that Andrew Luck retired. Everybody remembers that date. It's ingrained in your head if you're a Colts follower. So there's no question that right now the onus is on Anthony Richardson. This is going to test his maturity. It's going to test his resilience. It's going to test his development, trying to get up to speed mentally, because that's what this is. When you're not the starter in the NFL, you get 0 reps. Really past training camp, if you're not the number 1 quarterback, you're not taking too many live reps with the first team offense in practice, because it's all about, situational football in practice on a week-to-week basis. So that I'll absolutely agree with, that this is going to be about Anthony Richardson's, he's only 22 years old, I should say, but this will test his maturity, and he's going to have to grow up fast, and we'll see how he bounces back from this.
And the Colts are it's an important time. They've played a ton of divisional games already, playing Houston. They've already got both games against Houston out of the way, which is amazing. They played Tennessee, they played Jacksonville, and I think Jacksonville's coming up again soon.
I think that's why this is really
games. They kind of get out of the way quickly.
I think that's why this is so frustrating, Jim, because like you said, the Colts lost their
Matt?
second game of the season. I'm here. You got me?
I think we may have lost him. Jeffrey,
I'm here.
you can go.
I'm here. Do you hear me now?
I can hear Matt just fine. Go ahead, Matt.
Maybe I just lost the sound. My bad.
All right. For the sake of the show, Jeffrey, it's frustrating because the Colts lost 2 games to the Texans this year by a combined 5 points. You know, and there's way more that goes into winning and losing football games than just quarterback play. But I think it's fair to say that if you do have more consistency and more overall efficiency from the quarterback, you at the very least split a pair of those games. You probably win both of those games. All of a sudden, you're sitting at 5 wins or 6 wins, and you're in the catbird seat in the AFC South going into the last 9 games of the season. So again, it's not all about Anthony Richardson, but there's so much that when you have a good quarterback, it masks some of the deficiencies on your team. And when you don't have a good quarterback, it just accentuates all the other holes that you have around the inconsistencies that you're getting at that position.
But at 4-4 with 2 teams in the division that are god awful, and you got the games out. I mean, there's games to be won out there as long as Flacco can get the trains going on time. Again, he's not going to be your franchise answer for even 2 more years. If he's on a 1-year contract, that's probably all it's going to be. I don't dislike Flacco. Everybody knows that Flacco is a Band-Aid. So what is your, with so many teams that are let into the playoffs now, basically if you're over 500, you could get into the playoffs. What I would be curious about is what Colts fans are expecting. Is that what they want? Dude, like if the Colts get into the playoffs, lose right away, now you got a draft pick in the middle. Is it let's just figure out if we can't go make a deep run into the playoff, what's it all worth? That's always the curiosity that I have with each NFL fan base.
You're asking the $1 million question right now. It's what's more important? Is it the development of Anthony Richardson so that he turns into the quarterback that you saw him one day being when you drafted him 4th overall? Or is it just more important right now to make the playoffs for the sake of making the playoffs for the first time since 2020 and squashing some of the impatience that always exists within any NFL franchise when you haven't had, much success like the Colts haven't. They haven't made the playoffs since 2020. They haven't won an AFC South championship since 2014. All right. So around here, the natives are getting restless because with Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck every year, they were going 12-4 and winning the division, and they were making, those accomplishments look routine. And it's going to be really awkward. There's no question about it. This is a really interesting and fascinating time. And again, I use that phrase fork in the road because the Colts are taking a step back and they are pivoting from their stance that dates back to 18 months now. Back in April of 2023, when they drafted Anthony Richardson, it was all about he's got to play experience, right? Only 13 games coming out of college at Florida. He's got to play, more time on task, preseason games, joint practices. He's got to get some run. So long that he's healthy, he's our guy. And now it's, we'll worry about the future in the future. And so again, this is going to be in the background of everything that they do now going forward. It's going to be the elephant in the room the rest of this season. Everybody's going to be scrutinizing Joe Flacco's every pass, every series because of Anthony Richardson just sitting on the bench. Again, Flacco's on a 1-year deal, so going into the offseason, as soon as the gun goes off at the end of the year, it's going to be all about free agency and contracts. And is there a quarterback competition now between Anthony Richardson and whomever they bring in, whether that's in the upcoming draft or in free agency to compete with Anthony Richardson? It's just going to be really awkward, quite frankly. It's going to be a really interesting, fascinating, and again, awkward, I would say next, 9-10 months before we get to next September in week 1 of 2025.
Well,
so
man,
obviously,
and I hope. Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, obviously, getting the quarterback situation figured out is huge. It's the NFL. Then the next thing I would say for the Colts is to draft more Hawkeyes. I played with both Bob Sanders and Chad Greenway at Iowa. So you get more Hawkeyes on the roster. Good things seem to happen with those dudes.
And Dallas Clark, right?
Dallas Clark. Wait, what did I say? I said Chad Greenway instead of Dallas Clark. Excuse me. I meant to say
Yeah.
Dallas Clark and Bob Sanders.
Absolutely. No, that's all. That's awesome. Yeah. No, you can't go wrong with that solid program, man. They churn them out. And TJ Hawkins is coming back to the lineup this weekend for the Vikings too.
Sounds like it. Vikings fans have been screaming for him to get healthy and come back. We'll see if he's rusty.
Well, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Can't thank you enough, Matt, for joining us, and wishing you a great call on the Vikings game in Minneapolis. Stay warm, man. I don't know what the forecast is up there yet. It's probably not too cold. Don't you live in Minnesota now?
I was gonna say, Matt, find me on Twitter and hit me up if you need any recommendations when you're in town. I'd be more than happy to hook you up.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Yeah, I need all the help I can get. Wonderful. We'll do.
Okay.
We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Matt Taylor from the Colts joining us here. And we'll be back with more from the Greek from the Hard Truth Studios, brought to you by Pave Drain. Heated pave drain. Tell us about, before we take a break, tell us about the heated pave drain real quick.
I don't. So we got hit with snow. We got a Halloween snow up here in Minnesota. I don't know if it's hit your area or not, but it's come. What's that?
I said Minnesota, eh?
Oh, we haven't had we didn't have a ton of snow last winter, but we've already got 2-3 inches on the ground after yesterday. So if you're thinking about getting, oh yeah, it started to melt a little bit right away, but yeah, we got hit. So anybody out there, in the upper Midwest that is thinking about a new driveway, if you're thinking that I don't ever want to deal with the snow and ice that accumulates on my driveway for a little bit more of a premium on your new driveway, that can be gone forever. You would never have to worry about that. So you can find me on our website, Jeff Book, on Pave Drain. Even if it doesn't list your territory, I would just go ahead and contact me, and I'd be more than happy to talk you through it.
Yeah, and Jeff Book, that's Buch, by the way.
Correct.
So you get that spelling right. I'm trying to, just go to pavedrain.com. They should have a Jeffrey the Greek section on pavedrain.com.
I'll talk to the friends about that. See if he's okay.
We've got more coming up from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Back with more from Jeffrey the Greek. Lots of games to go through this week. On the other side, right after this break.
This segment is brought to you by Pave Drain Stormwater's arch enemy. We'll return to the Hard Truth Studios for more with Jim Coyle right after these messages.
Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their Cinnamon Vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum, Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So, no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Man, I lost connection with my Bluetooth earbuds.
Okay.
And could not get it back and have not gotten it back. And so I did 3/4 of the show not hearing anything, just looking at people and watching their lips move.
Oh boy. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
How fun is that?
That would be impossible.
You got to be a pro, baby. You got to be a pro and just roll along with it. And then late in the producer's or not producer, hell, that's an issue. You got a half a producer right now.
Yep.
Lots of good game. Well, I mean, we'll wait to talk about it. That's another thing.
Yeah, I mean, let's start out with obviously Illinois, Michigan State, and just go from there.
Let's see. Where's the welcome back? All right. All right, here we go.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. This segment is brought to you by Pave Drain Stormwater's arch enemy.
Glad to have you back here on this Friday from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. You know, this weekend will be a great time to go visit Hard Truth out in Nashville and Brown County, Indiana. Beautiful 325 acres of beautiful rolling hills. Full service restaurant. You can get distillery tours. You can have ATV tours. Enjoy the football games that are going to be going on, which there will be lots, including Indiana and Michigan State, looking to go 9-0 on the year with the return of starting quarterback Kurtis Rourke. Also, some other big time games. And where do you want to start at, Jeffro?
I don't see why we should start anywhere else other than the game going on in the woodshed on Saturday, kind of afternoon, kind of evening. It's going to get dark quick in that stadium. So I guess my question back to you is the question I would ask any Hoosier fan right now. Obviously, things are rolling great. It is awesome to hear that Kurtis Rourke is back. This is finally, we're in November. This is finally the first really true tough environment road game for this 2024 Hoosier team. Is it a concern for Hoosier fans? I'm curious what your thoughts are.
On which one?
Okay, so Indiana's first two road games were at UCLA. The Rose Bowl is not. It's not an intimidating environment. I would assume at least half that.
It's like a picnic atmosphere.
Correct. Right. So that's not an in-your-face road game. Then the next one was at Northwestern, which is essentially playing in front of a D3, type of fan. So it's fans and crowd. This is going to be a tough environment for the Hoosiers. I think it's the number one talking point with this game. I'm not saying the Hoosiers going to fall apart. I'm just saying it's going to be the toughest environment. Seeing how the communication is in this game, it's going to be interesting to see.
Absolutely, that's one of the things I've talked about. That is probably the biggest problem for Indiana. It's not Michigan State, and I don't mean that as a disparagingly. It will be the 80,000 people in the stadium that is going to try to make life as rough as possible for Indiana, because they have not played in front of, not only has this team not played in front of an environment like this, most of the players on the team have never played in front of an environment like this because of so many transfers, and they're all mid-major transfers who never saw a crowd like this. And so unless they have been with Indiana, or the few that came over from some of the other P4 programs, it's a different environment. But with that said, this Indiana team, Kurt Cignetti, has them locked in, focused.
For sure.
I don't think that it's going to, not only do I not think it will bother them greatly. Now, I'm not going to say that when they get into the end, in the end zone, that noise is not going to be loud. It will be. And it causes, we've seen it. It doesn't matter if it's in the NFL or where, it can cause problems, because you have to be able to communicate. It certainly helps having the communication from the sideline now. But since Kurtis Rourke has returned, that makes a huge difference to me, because he really doesn't get rattled. Had it been Taven Jackson, there would have been concern because the experience. But I think that Kurtis Rourke's experience, his team's complete and total confidence in him, they're going to be able to put that to bed. But it's also important, if they can get off to a quick start like they normally have been doing, that'll help tampen that down a little bit.
I could not agree more with the Kurtis Rourke. Like, obviously, you can't put a player out unless he's cleared. Every program is a little bit different how they handle it, but I can assure you there is a senior medical person that is saying this player can do this or this player can't do that. A lot of times that decision is taken out of the coach's hands. We had that in Iowa City this week as well. So my guess is as much as Kurtis Rourke, wanted to get back healthy, there was some pressure to get back healthy. The fact that he is able to play shows me that they want Rourke in this environment. So I completely agree with that. A couple things on Michigan State, since I would assume, this is a pro Hoosier crowd that knows this team very well. This is not a bad Michigan State team. I know you weren't necessarily disparaging this Michigan State team, but I want to be clear. This is a well-coached team. Jonathan Smith is an excellent coach. He has gone, he has had big game coaching moments like this, going against, big time teams within his own conference when he was, in the Pac-12. So he'll have his guys prepared. The thing that has been amazing to see the last month or so that certainly took me by surprise as a Hawkeye fan is their offensive line punch and rushing attack with two very, very talented running backs, Nate Carter and KLA. They are good. I mean, they are elusive dudes. I am going to be looking at that very early in this game because that Hoosier front seven has been really good stopping the run, but that Michigan State
crazy.
Really. But I got to say, the Iowa front seven and Michigan front seven have been pretty good at stopping the run too. And Michigan State still had success doing it. So that is going to be very interesting is how much Jonathan Smith and the staff leans on the rushing attack early in the game, and then how much success they have or don't have against that Hoosier defense. I think the plan is to run the ball as much as they can. And then when it's time, that's when their quarterback, Aiden Childs, we have dubbed him Captain Chaos on the Eyes on Big podcast. He has certainly had a feast or famine feel to him. And I'm going to tell you right now, when he is ready to make a play, the play gets made. It seemingly doesn't matter who they're going against on the other side of the ball. The guy is that talented. So I am so curious to see what that game plan is. Do they unleash Captain Chaos at Aiden Childs, or is it ease him into the game while trying to run the ball? That is one of the more intriguing things with this matchup.
Yeah, and I was trying to, give that respect, but when I start looking through the stats as a running team, Michigan State is 13th in the Big Ten. They don't have anyone, even Aiden Childs.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But trends. Okay. So something I've definitely learned over the years is it's tough to take season-long snapshots, especially with these college teams, especially when it's a young team coached in the first year by a head coach. Now, Cignetti's had the boys rolling from the first snap of the year, right? So you get that sometimes too. What I'm saying is, if you look at the Michigan State team that's been rolling out the last month as compared to the Michigan State team for the whole year, we have seen marked improvement by this Michigan State team. So if you look at the last 2 or 3, maybe 4 games, that's where you would see a little bit more of an accuracy on what this Sparty team has been looking like.
I did notice that from a quarterback standpoint, that Aiden Childs, his passing completion percentage kind of jumped into the 70s the last 2 games. Before that, he was in the low 60s. So he's been throwing the ball better. And I looked up his running stats because everybody's talking about you got to keep him in the pocket, and he does not have great stats either. His longest run is not I can't remember.
Nope.
It's like he's got two runs over 20 yards, I think, on the year. Michigan State is a team, their best running back has 400 yards on the year, and then they don't have anyone else. And I'm not trying to discount them. I'm just against Indiana, their defense leads the Big Ten in sacks. They lead the Big Ten in tackles per loss. They lead the Big Ten in fewest rushing yards per game. They lead the Big Ten in points allowed per game. They've just been so good all year long. And I know this is a different team, a different challenge, but I just can't see the fall off being that great.
I've got Indiana winning the game and covering, so don't get me wrong. I'm saying it is a feast or famine.
That's why we're here to talk about it, though.
Yep. What it is a feast or famine on both sides of the ball with the Michigan State, meaning they do get behind the line of scrimmage quite a bit. They also give up big plays quite a bit, which I think would fold nicely into what Cignetti and that offense wants to do on Saturday. Feast or famine there, feast or famine on offense. Doubt their wide receiver core at your own risk. That super freshman Nick Marsh is extremely talented. When that guy gets the ball in his hands, he is electric. So watch out for him. Again, I know that they don't have a running back that is exploding off the page with total yards. They go with a hot hand thing between Nate Carter and KLA. So I have no idea which guy it's going to be each week. It seems to be a different guy. Now, Nate Carter seems to be the one that's been kind of taken off lately. We will see, but that's how they've done that so far. So, and then switching to the Hoosiers, that I think Rourke is back. You talked about it with Zach Osterberg before. I am curious to see if the timing is just a little bit off. Last time you played, it was at home 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Now you're on the road after a little bit of a break. Am I super concerned? I am not super concerned, but I'm curious to see what it would look like. I don't know if we've ever gotten clarification. I've heard ligament. I can't imagine a ligament would be healed that quick to come back and play a Big Ten football game. I think I've also heard something with it's the thumbnail with Rourke. So it's just, and if it's that, it's really just going to come down to how does that grip feel? Does he have to have any tape or anything on that thumb? I mean, any quarterback will tell you that thumb is the most important digit when you're ripping the football. I would be shocked if he's not wearing
a glove, maybe.
I've heard glove. If the glove thing happens, some guys like the glove. Maybe that's something in this charm season that winds up helping out.
He's a big glove. He's got lots of gloves. We got lots of gloves. Everyone's going to have gloves. They're going to be bigger than anyone's.
There you go. All right. Got a little impersonation in there. But anyways, that'll be curious. That'll be curious to see. But as my joke has been, the Hoosiers, who's this guy? Who's that guy scoring a touchdown now? Who's that guy? They're still all out there, Surratt, Cooper, Miles and Miles, Lawton. And I mean, all those guys are still running around. So that would lead me to believe that Rourke will be able to ease back into it. But I'm also interested to see if Indiana runs the ball to start the game with as well. So, I mean, I picked the over in this game, but I think it'll be something where the points will get going as the game goes on. I think there will be actually a little points first quarter and a half in this game, and then you'll see both offenses start to take off after that.
Yeah, it's going to be a good test for the Hoosiers, but also they need to keep doing things. I talked about this earlier to try to keep chipping away at this brand bias that they'll be dealing with throughout the year. It's going to be interesting because after the Michigan State game, a couple of days, we'll get to see the first college football playoff poll come out. And I'm very interested to see, because the AP poll is crap. But I'm very interested to see what the actual immediate respect level for Indiana is. Right.
Assuming a Hoosier win on Saturday, I think they will be ranked higher than what they've been in the AP, would be my guess. There seems to be a lot of analytics that read into the committee's selection process. All the analytics love the Hoosiers. I mean, their game control is off the charts. Strength of schedule, not so good. So that maybe is a little bit, I don't know. I would expect the Hoosiers, again, assuming a win, and if I could say a win and a cover, I would expect them to be in the top 10, but my gosh, those committee people have proven me wrong quite a few times.
Looking forward to that. And another gigantic game, of course, Penn State hosting Ohio State, and the Buckeyes are a 3.5-point favorite in this game. And I'm torn because Penn State, their offense is, I don't want to label it, but it's not what I would call great. Their defense is very stout. Ohio State coming off of a very surprising, struggling win over a Nebraska team at home that just got obliterated by Indiana the week before that. So I'm like, okay, what do we make of that? So Ohio State goes into Penn State, a huge game in regards to college football playoff implications and Big Ten championship.
Yeah, it's the one thing I would say is really quick on the Ohio State-Nebraska game is Nebraska has a way of bludgeoning offensive lines more than people realize. Certainly didn't happen versus Indiana. But with Ohio State now to Penn State, can Penn State, we are just assuming that Penn State's defensive line is going to be as bad or better, more success against this Ohio State offensive line, because heck, we just saw that in Nebraska. I would say Penn State does a better job of getting behind the line of scrimmage than Nebraska's front seven, but they're a little bit more leakier in letting creases happen as well. So can Chip Kelly take advantage of that? Man, I tell you, I don't know, because that Ohio State offensive line, the second they started losing guys versus Oregon, and then we saw it again last week versus Nebraska, it looked horrible. And it is hard to get that out of my head as you look at these games and predict these games, right? It is hard to look at or hard to forget. But that is the game to me, is can Chip Kelly and Ryan Day scheme around their offensive line and still get points on the board? I think they can, okay? But this is a low-scoring game to me. Find my sheet here. I've got Ohio State 20, Penn State 17. So I still got Ohio State winning this game. That's a slight Penn State cover. I've got it going quite a bit under, because everything about this game screams defensive dominance by both teams, a tighter game in that early, noon window. But we'll see. College football has a way of proving of sold idiots, but looks like a defensive-led game to me.
Yeah, and it's offensively they tamped down. Neither offense of late has really looked all that sharp, I guess you'd say.
No, absolutely not.
So you're taking Penn State to cover on that, which is tough. Indiana to cover. What are your Hawkeyes doing this week?
Yeah, we got the Battle of the Bull. Wisconsin, the Badgers are coming into town. That's a 6:30 p.m. game. Iowa's favored by 3.5. Over under, if you got it, it's down to as low as 41, 40.5 in some spots. Jim, it's a little dirty secret, but Iowa's overs, I think, are currently what are we? 1, maybe 6-2 on the overs in Iowa games. So just a fun little tidbit right there. Yeah, I mean, Iowa's 6 and it's either, depending on where you got it, they're either 6-2 or 7-1 on game overs. Iowa's offense has scored 40 points 3 different times this season. Don't think we're going to get that on Saturday night versus Wisconsin. Scott Docterman of The Athletic, he does a really good job covering all of the Big Ten and Iowa. One of his favorite stats is essentially it's a foregone conclusion that the rushing leader in the Iowa-Wisconsin game wins. They win this game almost every single time. I do think that's a huge stat that'll play into this game. I expect Iowa to have a little bit more success with Caleb Johnson, who has been incredible running the ball. So I think Iowa wins this game, but I'll be honest with you, I still have Wisconsin covering. I'm taking the 3 and a hook, but I could see either team winning this game. And I see Andy's got a question on Minnesota, Illinois. We can talk on that if you're okay with it, Jim.
Yeah, I'm curious because I think that's going to be an interesting game. Minnesota has been playing very well. Illinois coming off of a beatdown at Oregon. They're at home. and they need to bounce back. That's not going to be an easy game, but Illinois is not a bad team.
Lots of interesting things about this. I thought this line would come out Illinois favored by 3.5 or 4, and I was going to get line value in that because I liked Minnesota. And what does Vegas do? They wind up making Minnesota a 2.5 point favorite on the road. What the heck is going on, right? You know, Illinois is 6-2, Minnesota's 5-3. I think what they see is two things. They up Illinois team, their star receiver, Pat Bryant, we still don't really know about. We heard he was playing, and we don't know. So maybe Brett Bielema's doing a little bit of, hiding the weenie there a little bit with that. And then also you have a Minnesota team that's coming in that's just hot as can be. Their quarterback, Max Brosmer, has been absolutely dealing the ball. But as one of the listeners just pointed out, that's a home dog with Illinois. So I wound up taking Illinois to win the game. So obviously that's an Illinois cover with them being a dog. But I tell you what, that is a really interesting game. Maybe not a ton of people are talking about, but I can't wait to watch that game myself.
Yeah, let's see. We will not be talking about the Northwestern Purdue game. Let me tell you that.
Hey, can I say this? Can I say this? I like the under.
Purdue's last opportunity to get a win.
I think so. And 47.5 points this game opened up at. I don't see these offenses putting up that many points. So the under in that game was actually my lock of the week.
Yeah, crazy. UCLA, Nebraska. Nebraska is surprisingly only a 6.5 favorite at home. How do they not cover that?
UCLA has been playing tougher lately, and Nebraska, their offense does not look explosive very often. Really talented quarterback, Dylan Raiola. He has looked extremely human and young lately. I think that all kind of plays into it. UCLA is coming off an idle week, traveling into Nebraska. So I would say those are the major factors on why that line is down that kind of low.
USC goes to Washington. Interesting game. USC desperately needing a win. Lincoln Riley desperately needing a win. Washington coming off of a loss, but they are in the Puget Sound.
Yeah, nothing screams Big Ten football like the USC Trojans playing at the Washington Huskies. So I tell you what, the USC fans that I've gotten to know, still getting to know some of these left coast teams, but they are not happy with Lincoln Riley. They were boastful about Lincoln Riley back in August, earlier in the year, when they went and got that neutral site field win versus LSU. But yikes, the bloom is officially off the rose for how Trojan fans feel. And then you got Washington fans. I still don't understand this, but they really did think they were just going to roll into the Big Ten with that all-new roster and just go 9-3, 10-2. I think they've come to find out that doing that with a brand-new O-line, D-line on both sides of the ball has been tough. So they want the win, too. I've got Washington getting this win. The road teams, as my podcast partner Jordan Eggleston pointed out on our last podcast, in that middle tier of the Big Ten, which is basically teams 5 through about 12 or 13, the road teams have been god-awful. So this is a USC team going up north, to take on Washington. I like Washington to win that game. I don't know what your thoughts were after playing Washington last week, but when they're not making mistakes, they've got a lot of punch.
Yeah, I was torn on that one, to be honest with you. I think I took USC in the first half because they seem to get out in front and then give up the ghost. But the last game, Iowa at UCLA, like you mentioned, UCLA has been playing a little better as well, but not well enough.
Yeah.
Or is that next week?
Iowa at UCLA is next Friday. I guess the only one.
Never mind. I'm sorry. Yeah. They have the time listed already. That kind of threw me off. But going to be a great week. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep, absolutely.
Jeffrey the Greek, brought to you by Pave Drain Heated Systems. Go to pavedrain.com. Thank you as much as always, brother. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Enjoy the weekend.
Enjoy your weekend, bro. That's going to wrap it up for us here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio. I cannot thank each and every one of you enough. It's going to be a fun weekend. Indiana basketball tonight, and then we're heading to East Lansing tomorrow. Do not forget the Hard Truth Indiana football post-game show, which will be coming to you following Indiana's game tomorrow, in which they seek to go 9-0 and set a new program record for starts in a college football season. Looking forward to it. We're back tomorrow for the post-game show. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. Have yourselves a great Friday, and I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.